Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 occasionally flirts with the joy of movement and attitude that made the original 4 games classics, but the wheels come off quickly. There are a disappointing number of design and technical problems that range from frustrating to flat-out broken, making the attempt at returning the series to glory a non-starter. Developer Robomoto started off with a good idea, paring Tony Hawk down to its basics. You won't be hopping off your board, exploring open worlds, or standing on a weird piece of plastic. Instead, Pro Skater 5 leaves you to test your ability to chain together tricks, manuals, and grinds, much like Classic Hawk. It almost works. At times, I found myself getting back into that familiar rhythm that made me fall in love with the original games. I had moments of zen that balanced the combination of learning the maps, memorizing your moveset, and the risk-reward of when to pull out of a chain. But any of that nostalgia was quickly erased by Tony Hawk 5's frustrating interface, bland levels, and jagged edges. For example, the one major addition to your arsenal is a slam move that sends your skater rocketing down to the ground at the press of a button. The problem here is that the slam is mapped to the same button as grind, and it can't be changed. I can't count the number of times I intended on continuing a combo with a grind, only to accidentally slam down to the ground and end the chain. Frustrating moments like this pulled me out of my groove far too often. Also, though Tony Hawk 5 is ostensibly an online game, I don't recommend playing it that way. The addition of a dozen other players skating around your map slows the frame rate down, adds to load times, and doesn't really introduce any interesting social elements. I found myself playing offline in order to have a smoother experience. But smoother is a relative term, because even then, menus don't convey enough information, and load screens pop up far too often, killing momentum in what should be a fast-paced game. Classic Tony Hawk attitude is the other big thing I miss in Pro Skater 5. These levels generally lack any sort of charm or identity. Many are a hodgepodge of elements from classic maps like the warehouse, but none of them really stand on their own. Even worse is that many of the trick lines aren't conveyed in an effective manner. There aren't enough visual cues throughout the levels that give you confidence in your next move, and I found my character obscuring my view far too often. Inside each stage, there are a dozen or so challenges pulled from a pretty boring pool of tasks, like destroying 10 thingies or grinding for an eternity. You choose these from a list, but it's annoying that you don't know what the challenge is before you load into it, especially given the fact that there's no way to easily quit one and go back to the level. You either have to wait for the timer to run down or pop all the way back to the main menu. This makes hopping between challenges a legitimate chore. Aside from unlocking more levels, completing these challenges add to the ways you can customize your characters. I liked the aesthetic options, especially nods to other games like Octodad and Ratchet & Clank. On the flip side, earning stat points and upgrading my rider's abilities seemed completely pointless. I honestly couldn't tell the difference between a vanilla character without any additional stat boosts and a fully upgraded one. The earlier games had a really great sense of progression through the campaigns, and that sensation is completely absent in Pro Skater 5. And then there's the performance. As you've seen by now, the game is rife with glitches, hiccups, and collision disasters, which are particularly noticeable in a game that's primarily about how the human body interacts with the world when traveling at high speeds. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5's rare moments of nostalgic joy are drowned out by its abundance of poorly thought out levels, control problems, bugs, and its glaring lack of attitude. It boggles the mind that a $60 game in 2015 can be riddled with so many technical issues. For more on Tony Hawk, stay right here on IGN.